Hey everybody, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Elevating Our Stories. On today's program, we're going to talk about the opportunities available for homeowners, businesses, and the community thanks to funds from the government. Joining me and my co-host, Pastor Booker Vance, is Elevate's Chief Executive Officer, Ann Evans. And thanks so much for coming back to speak with us again. It's always good to have you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Well, it's teamwork is dream work.
Yeah.
And we've got a big program and a lot to share, but I want to start off with something about you. How has your experience as a CEO, a woman CEO, a Chicago resident and a homeowner informed how you approach your work?
Yeah, well, I want to start first by talking about me as a person and how I see the importance of all of us having safe, healthy, affordable housing. It's so critical for our families. As a mother, as a neighbor, I care that my community, our broader community can have happy, healthy, productive lives. And we can't do that if our utility bills are too high, if we're struggling with paying the rent or paying the light bill. And I actually know firsthand what it's like to get a disconnection notice and the fear I felt as a mother of what that might do to my kids. And it doesn't have to be that way. We know that energy efficiency works, we know that renewables work, and we know that we can really give people the healthy, safe housing that they need. So that's how I come to this work as a person. As a CEO, I'm just constantly inspired by the team that we have and by our mission. And I'm so excited that the federal government has recognized this important need to really invest in affordable housing and bring clean energy solutions along. So I'm really inspired by this point in time, and I hope that we can collectively meet this moment.
That sounds great.
It's exciting just to see the narrative has changed and the energy around the narrative, particularly this concept of billionaire with a B, a capital B. And can you give us some idea of what that kind of entails when we talk about federal, state, county, and city?
Yeah, so there are many new federal opportunities, and a lot of them came through the Inflation Reduction Act, which is an investment of $370 billion. And again, I'm still not used to saying billion.
We're the billionaires.
Dollars into solutions that can help create healthy, safe, affordable housing and reduce energy bills. Of course, there are beneficial climate impacts, but I'm really interested in the impacts on people and families and how we can reduce their monthly costs and help stabilize their financial health, as well as create job opportunities. Because these new clean energy jobs, solar installs, heat pump technology, all of those are jobs for the future that can give folks a chance that have never had that chance before. And I hope that can inspire some hope that anybody can be part of the solar industry.
That to me is beautiful for you to kind of say that, because it's drilling it down from the global to the national to the locals. But how do you see some of the things that are happening to the energy economy in Chicago and the local area?
Well, we're starting to see more rooftop solar, more community solar. We're seeing people take advantage of energy efficiency programs, and altogether that can reduce energy costs by 50%. So it's starting to happen, but we have so much more work to do. And particularly on the wealth generation opportunities, where we can have Black and brown businesses doing that work, capturing that wealth creation opportunity. That's where I see a lot of promise, and yet still a lot of work to do.
And I want to specifically ask, going back to some of the government funding, so the IRA, Inflation Reduction Act, goofy name, great program. it's making a major difference, and not just in energy, but like in flooding or workforce, as you mentioned. At the county level, there's a number of programs that Elevate's involved in. Can you give us an overview on that too?
Yeah, so those programs are actually funded by the American Rescue Plan Act, or
So it's still
ARPA.
federal.
It's still federal.
Okay.
It's still federal, and I think that one of the things that I'd like to do is spend some time doing a better job of telling the story about what is the impact of this federal investment on people and on families. And these programs that Cook County has launched are really exciting, broad, meeting people where they are. So we're able to make investments of tens of thousands of dollars in people's home, which is desperately needed. And it's needed because we know that we've historically disinvested in communities through systems like redlining and systems, the insurance industry. We can go on and on and on.
Mortgage, repair, banking, all of that.
All of that. And so we must find the significant investment to invest in home repairs, clean energy, solar, lead service line replacement that families need, and make some progress to repair past harms. I
love that, and there's lots of ways to find out more on our website, on the county website, elevatenp.org. But I want to talk about what COVID taught us, because I know that was a really pivotal time, and the push to make equity at the core of things, so the people that were previously left behind. But I remember that you were thinking a lot about everything from utility bills to just access to funding. What did COVID teach us, and how did Elevate change because of it?
Yeah, I think COVID taught us how uncertain our times are. I mean, and yes, we already know, but we are living through a time of unprecedented uncertainty. And COVID also taught us that we respond as community. The kind of mutual aid that came up, the faith-based organizations that stepped up to help people, it was and is a beautiful thing. The outreach to people who were unhoused, so much of this showed me and brought inspiration to me about how communities can make change when they work together. With regard to Elevate and our work and how we were impacted by COVID, the families we serve were asked to shelter in place in their homes, and yet their homes are not safe because they may have combustion hazards, they may have environmental hazards, and so I think our work became even so much more important. We advanced our policy work, working together with so many coalition partners to make sure that folks were not getting disconnected. We're excited to see so many moratoriums on water shutoffs, because how can you shut somebody's water off and expect them to stay safe from COVID? But we went beyond that, because we said, hey, what about the folks that have already been shut off? How do we work to find them and get them reconnected? So COVID caused us to expand our work, but still hold to our principles. So we always start by listening, and we listened to what was happening in the community and began to expand the way we provided responses.
I think you also made some changes around helping to give loans to contractors, and could you say a little bit more about that and that money trill inequality?
Yeah, and some of the changes that COVID required actually resulted in increased productivity. So we work with so many contractors who are family businesses. They're the old way of having a contractor come to your house and walk through your house and write stuff down on a clipboard and hand you a potential proposal. Those days were gone because we weren't going to people's houses. We didn't want people to be at risk. So this caused us to really help move our businesses, our clean energy businesses, to more electronic systems. So we were handing out laptops, we were helping folks make sure they had broadband at home, and helping them transition their businesses. As part of this, we learned, because we, again, always start and listen, we heard from our businesses, from our contractors, that they couldn't grow because they didn't have access to credit. And that maybe because so much of the credit systems are focused on FICO scores, and that we can do a whole show just on FICO scores and how those systems work or don't work or harm people. But also there's a lot of risk aversion in the lending community more broadly, but in particular for anybody working in the construction trades, because that work is considered to be seasonal, even though we know our folks are working, we know our businesses are working all year round. And so that's kind of a double whammy. And so we looked around to talk to our partners and determined that we needed to step up and start providing some loans, some working capital to our businesses, so that their businesses could not only survive during the beginning of COVID, but actually thrive.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's another example of how some of the seemingly intractable societal challenges, problems, racism caused in many ways, obstacles can be addressed when we put our heads together and do something different. And I do want to say that I remember you talking a lot, because you do have a background in public health. The quietest PhD I've ever heard. It's like, don't call me doctor, Dr. Ann Evans. But you talked about that disconnect between home and home being important. Stay home, but then home might have mold, home might have a leaky roof, home might have insufficient heating. Any other thoughts to add to that, what you learned?
Yeah, just like so many other disparities by race, the COVID really shone the light on everything. Yeah. I mean, from a housing perspective, from a transportation perspective, really on everything. And as a result of that, we saw some changes happen. So signing up for the emergency assistance, for rental assistance, for utility assistance, that all moved to online because we didn't want people waiting in line, potentially at risk of getting infected or spreading the virus. So we saw all these sort of intractable problems that really limited access to benefits. We saw a lot of those disappear during COVID. And I think what we need to do and work on collectively is not let them just disappear and go back to business as usual. We need to protect the advances that have been made and continue to push forward.
We learned a lot about what we can do on Zoom, right? And you were running around delivering water.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, we were doing water on the south side. But tell me a little bit, what do you find exciting about moving beyond this? Because we've done great successes, but the real work's not done. So have you thought any more about energy and how it's going to be moved into the future, and how we need to pivot and do some wider things that you think are potentially impactful for our communities?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's really exciting is to think about energy sovereignty and going beyond community solar, which is already kind of a community shared ownership model, but going beyond that so that we're giving more assets to community members. I mean, getting rooftop solar on your home increases the value of your home, as well as reducing energy. So I think that one of the things that we really have to get good at, because the energy landscape continues to be confusing. Some might say that's intentional.
Okay, yeah.
And we have to get even better at telling the stories of people who have accessed these benefits and dramatically reduced their utility bills and improved the health of their housing. You know, we've been moving towards electrifying homes and taking those combustion appliances out of the home, and families are telling us how improved their health is because they are no longer breathing
in
breathing in toxins. So I think like really integrating all of the benefits that are out there and helping people get set up for success with really low utility bills. There's this amazing woman who's a leader on the South Side in her community, helping take care of her neighbors' children, and she got her home electrified and electrified, that sounds funny, I know. She moved away from the combustion fuels towards new electric appliances, as well as getting rooftop solar, and her bills are so low. Last month, $25. So that not only helps her today, but it protects her against future threats. So I'd like to get us thinking around that. Like, we have to address the current emergency because it is an emergency. Energy burdens and water burdens and disconnections, they're an emergency today, but then we also have to think in the future and how do we protect families against future threats.
So what would be your hope for Elevate and other organizations to be impactful? What would you hope?
I would hope that we can partner, listen to community, and actually get this historic $370 billion investment into people's homes in a way that is reparative and impactful for decades to come.
And there's hope, and then the other side of that is fear. There are a lot of misconceptions around what electrification can mean. There are a lot of industries that are invested in keeping things status quo. And talk a little bit about that, because I think that there's just not enough information about what clean building ordinances for new buildings and those changes can mean for communities.
Yeah, and there's good reason to be fearful because so many families have had really harmful experience, especially when working with government programs. Mm-hmm. So there's all sorts of reasons to be fearful. We have to be in relationship together. These relationships have to be trusting, and we have to get good and accurate information out there. And as you know, as a journalist and communications expert, getting people the facts is no easy.
Harder than ever. Harder than ever.
So I think we need more creative storytelling. That's why I'm so excited by the work that you led in partnership with Tanika Jackson on the Empowered Chicago series. Yep. That's listening to people tell their stories of how they experience energy burden. That's what telling those stories, like I just mentioned to the family on the South Side, mm-hmm. like getting the word out and creating platforms for people to tell their own stories.
Yeah, I think that's so true, and thank you for your kind words. Let's, in fact, take a minute to look at a story about Elevate's work in climate right after this.
A new report just out today reveals how many more extreme heat days people around the world are experiencing due to human-caused climate change. Last year, in fact, was the hottest year on record. And with summer approaching, NBC5's Kate Chappell takes a closer look at the impact this new report could have here on Chicago.
This has to be a gift from God.
Doris Martin can't help but smile when she talks about the electrification upgrade to her Chicago Heights home.
I'm saving about 50%, even 75% of what I was paying for gas.
The nonprofit group Elevate installed solar panels on her roof and replaced gas appliances with electric units.
This family's utility bills are every month well under $100, and that makes their home more affordable. It also makes them healthier.
The organization works to ensure everyone in Chicago has access to clean and affordable cooling in their homes, an increasing cause for concern as the planet gets hotter due to human-caused climate change.
Only 30% of homes in Chicago have central air conditioning, and that's compared to over 75% nationally.
A new report from scientists at World Weather Attribution, the Red Cross Crescent Climate Center, and Climate Central shows almost all of the world's population experienced extreme heat that wouldn't have happened without climate change.
Illinois, on average, had about a week more of those uncomfortably warm temperatures.
Unlike sudden weather disasters, heat waves kill slowly and sometimes silently and can exacerbate pre-existing medical conditions. Those socially isolated or living near industrial sites and in historically disadvantaged communities are most at risk.
You can actually turn the thermostat down a little bit in the urban environment. So planting trees, making cities more reflective so that you send that energy back into space rather than absorbing it.
The report finds these extreme heat waves are likely to last longer and become more common if the burning of fossil fuels continues as is. We'll put a link to more information about Elevate as well as the full Climate Central report at NBCChicago.com. Kate Chappell, NBC5 News.
Really interesting information for sure. And Pastor Vance.
Yeah, so we want to hear a little bit about this innovation called Cabo and how it'd be impactful for our state and city.
Yeah. So the Clean and Affordable Buildings Ordinance, which has been nicknamed Cabo, which sounds like a really nice vacation spot, which I've never been to. Have you?
No.
Okay. But taking us back to the Clean and Affordable Buildings Ordinance, Cabo is an effort to help create healthier, safer buildings and it is focused on new construction. So basically what it is saying is that all new construction needs to be electric. Yeah. And the reason to do that is that all electric buildings are actually cheaper to operate, and they are also reduce emissions over time, especially as the grid gets increasingly cleaner as we get closer to our 2030 and 2035 goals on having a emissions-free electric grid. But they also provide healthier homes, and they're cheaper to construct. Because if you're just doing an all-electric building, you don't have to spend the money to run gas lines. So it makes sense from a number of different points of view.
Especially for new buildings, because there's a lot of misinformation out there as to what it means to people and what it's going to mean to their utility bills versus what it's going to mean for our future.
Exactly.
And combating the rhetoric and educating communities about what the benefits of electrification and what that means. So thank you for that.
And I think in our time that we have left, there's more on the state level. So, first let's recap the Biden-Harris administration, not endorsing anybody, just saying where it came from. They've made billions available through ARPA and the Inflation Reduction Act, and we can help communities have access to that. And there's more happening at the state.
Yeah, absolutely. So the state has about $260 million to make available to Illinois homeowners and building owners, so apartment building owners and homeowners, because we want renters to be able to benefit as well, to upgrade their appliances to these new technologies that are so much more energy efficient and therefore so much less expensive to run. So those are heat pumps, those are new stoves, maybe all electric stoves. One of the things that's interesting that we learned in talking to people about stoves is that their preference is actually to cook the same way they grew up. So if you, for example, grew up in Puerto Rico and you live in Chicago now, you would very likely prefer to have an electric stove.
It's habit and comfort.
Right. If you grew up in the Southeast United States, most of the stoves are electric. Yeah. So there's actually quite a lot of cooking with electric stoves that is part of our lives already today.
Well, so much that we've talked about. We talked about the funding opportunities. Some of the resources are at elevatemp.org. Rewiring America has some ways for you to see what what benefits you can access from the federal government. We have a Chicago solar map, which can let you know if your property, and that's at the Elevate website, qualifies or would be a good candidate for solar, and continue to learn about the Clean and Affordable Buildings Ordinance and what it really means for our health. So thank you for joining us for Elevating Our Stories of Clean Energy Opportunities. Pastor Vance, thank you for being my co-host.
Amen. And thank you for joining us. It's been a wonderful evening. Good night.